So, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. One team, one mission. It's Monday night again. Every once a week it happens. It keeps coming around. So, tonight Donna is going to share with us, and hopefully, if you're watching this as recorded, you already know all the details about how we are working together to impact our world and make an income at the same time. And we feel drawn and uh, like it's a mission. It's our mission to do what we do. So it's very exciting. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Donna, and then I'm going to
Awesome.
mute out and let me know if you need anything.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. So, most of you know that we were able to go to Waco over the summer. I don't remember what month that was, honestly. Was that June? June? Yeah. And there was a great presentation that was done at that boot camp by Lori Kendall and one of her team members, Jan Brown. And she talked about events like in terms of building a burrito, which was hilarious. And so Lori was kind enough to give me her presentation. So she sent it to me. And I did not change anything. I'm just going to go through the slides and we'll talk about it. I did turn it into a PDF, so I've already put it into our One Team, One Mission board, and it is available. So don't get all freaked out about trying to take pictures and do all kinds of things. If you'll just listen and take notes, you have the entire presentation. I mean, I would ask that you guys keep it close because she entrusted that to our team. She knew that I was going to be training on it. So, I wouldn't put it out there everywhere. And then I took at the boot camp, she actually had a worksheet that they passed out, and we had the opportunity to kind of work through that a little bit. So you know me, I took that worksheet and I redid it because it was simply a sheet that was handed out to us. So I didn't have that in a form that I could print more of them. So I recreated that and added some notes to it. And Kim and Amy and I have already planned like 3, 4 events using those worksheets. So I'm just going to tell you guys the format. It's pretty incredible to be able to sit down and like have some structure to figure out an event, right? It was so helpful. And so when you have one sheet for each event, you can just write all over it and take notes, and it was very helpful. The three of us sat around a table, and 30 to 45 minutes we had 5 events planned. Okay, so it's very helpful. And make sure that you have everything covered. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to flip through this event. So make sure that you guys can see that. You can see it okay? Awesome. All right. So the very first thing that she gives us is, how incredibly creative she is, right? It's like off the top of her head, like she's funny, she's creative, and there's always somebody on our team that is that way. We all have a person in our life that is that way, and Lori Kendall is one of them. And so she's like, she just started like spurting out names of events, and it is so helpful to have this. And now you have it. Okay. So don't try it. You don't have to take a picture of it. You already have it. It's in our board. But some of these are like, things that I would never have thought of. And sometimes you guys know how I feel about starting with a blank sheet of paper, right? It's really hard to start with a blank sheet of paper. But if you have something like this, that you can read through all of these things and you go, oh, that sounds so much fun. And maybe we'd like tweak it a little bit. So that's kind of what we did with our events. But there's like a huge long list of super creative events. Some of them will make sense to you. And some of them you'll go, well, I don't even really know what she was talking about, right? But there's a lot of them. And so I hope that you guys find that helpful as you start creating events, because when we talked about this, the month that we're in, and not just this month, but the next several months, the next 90 days, I love that our company has again adopted that 90-day period of time for us to really work towards something. Um, but if we really have aspirations to grow our impact and grow our teams, then getting back into the habit of doing events on a regular basis is probably the best way to do that. I mean, we can always impact people one-on-one and, um, you know, do the addition, right? Add orders to our bottom line. But to be able to multiply and really impact a larger group of people, events, that's where we're going to be the most effective at building momentum. And so there's just like some super fun ways to be able to do that. So once you kind of think about some of these titles and you get excited about something, now we have a framework because we're going to build them like a burrito. So I don't know how many of you guys go to Chipotle or some of the other burrito places, but anytime you go through a cafeteria type line, there's always a format, right? And so our events are typically made up of an opening. We're covering some very basic facts that we want to get the information across. We've talked about being able to share our heart because what we've learned over the years, right? We can facts sell, no, facts. I don't know what's that saying. Facts but stories sell or something. I don't remember what it says. Facts tell and stories sell. That's it. I got it. And then making sure that we close, because I think that's where a lot of us fall short. If we're gonna go through all of this and we're gonna put the event on, by all means, let's take those steps, right, to actually close and ask for the sale. And then the last one is to bring the fun. And so we're going to talk a little bit about each of those as we build, as those are like ingredients for our burrito that we're building. So the rice is how you actually open your event, because we've got to have the rice. And the first one is like when people start arriving, like, what are you going to do? Right? What's it going to look like when they start walking through the front door? Because do they all come at one time? No. Right? Typically, they all come in at different times. And so what are you going to do to kind of keep them busy until the bulk of your group has arrived? So she talked about doing samples, having smoothies at the door, or perhaps doing a tasting bar. And then you might want to do an icebreaker. There are a bunch of different ways that you can do that. Truth and a lie. We brought up a couple more, but it's also kind of cool to be able to use Chat GPT at this point and ask questions like, what are some good, fun icebreakers for parties? It's probably endless what you can do. And as you kind of develop those, if you would be so kind as to share with your team, like with all of us, what are some of the things that are working when you guys do get your events opened up and started? Making sure that you're welcoming your guests, thanking them for coming, and then the host kind of sharing the story. What I've done before too is actually have gone around the room and asked people like how they got connected, right? So how did they get connected to the host? How do they know me? Or whoever's hosting the party. And that's kind of interesting and then they know each other, and it's just kind of fun to do that too. So that's your opening. And then when you start working on facts, that's our protein, right? Because that's the educational part of our event. I know Lori and them, they're pretty famous for doing watch parties. There's all different ways to do watch parties. If you want to dial into what the corporate's already got on that second Thursday, that prospect call, you can set that up. But there are also so many good recordings, right? And I guess what I would always say is have, if you're going to connect people to a live call, I would always have a backup plan just in case something happens with that live call and it doesn't go as it should. You always have a backup plan that you can easily kind of pull up and bring that information to people. If you don't want to do a watch party, if that's not your cup of tea, then perhaps you want to be the speaker yourself. You might, maybe your sponsor. If you're brand new, you might want to bring a couple of people in to help you. Perhaps there's an expert. There's different topics that you can bring in and let them speak on their area of expertise, and then kind of help them connect the dots back with Nutrition and Juice Plus. There's all kinds of good videos that you can incorporate during that. Don't be afraid to stop and start something, so you can, start a watch party and stop, not a watch party, but if you had a pre-recorded video, you can start it, play it up to a certain point, have discussion. We've done that on this Zoom at various times, but we have some great videos that you can share. And then, you can always use the old standard, which would be like the slide presentation, right? And you can find those. The Reset is a great guidebook, so full of information. And then there's information on boards and hubs. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get that information. And it means that your events can all kind of look a little bit different. And so even if you get into a rhythm of having different events, they can all look a little bit different, so they don't get people don't get bored. They're not always the same. So then the heart is like the special topping, right? That's really kind of what pulls in. What's your favorite thing that you get to put on burrito? Mine's guacamole. Somebody else's might be pico. Like, there's always something that kind of makes it special. And that is what we're talking about in terms of our time together with our friends. And that would be like the stories or circle sharing. I don't know if you guys have ever done that before, where you maybe ask a couple of open-ended questions, and give them the opportunity to kind of go around and share. And it just builds it, and it builds some camaraderie within that group. And then I love that idea of celebrating or shining a light on someone's health journey. Like, maybe ahead of time who's coming, and it could be a partner, it could be a customer that has, had an incredible reset story, or, her and her son have loved their Juice Plus, and this is what's happened as a result of that, right? So our stories, being able to celebrate, circle sharing, all of that is a way to really impact people at that heart level. And you've already laid the groundwork with some of the facts. Okay, so this kind of brings it around so that you can put the I don't know, the heart to it, right? And then the close. So she says on here, the beans can make or break your burrito, right? So this closing is the key, right? We can't skip over it. We can't be afraid of it. It needs to become like supernatural. And if you need to practice that part because you're not comfortable with it, you don't have confidence in that part. But remember, I think one of the best things that ever happened was when Wendy Campbell said, you treat this whole thing like a gift with a big red bow on it, right? If you think about what you're offering as a gift, it makes it in your brain just different, right? So during that time that you've set aside to close, being able to talk about, our special offers that might include the Healthy Starts program. This is, there are different incentives that are running on during different months. So we had Join in June. That's obviously a little bit different now. But there, I think maybe we did the one where you could actually, there was an incentive for partners to actually join, right? That's what that was. But then just being able to tell them what's next. So perhaps you already have, I'm going to encourage you to always have whatever your next event is going to be, or where you're going to be. If you don't have an event planned, perhaps there's a Zoom or something, right, that you can help, that will maybe back up what you're talking about, that you can invite them to. If you have the Facebook group, we've talked about that before, inviting them to join the Facebook group. Um, and then obviously the reset. So if you enjoy doing the reset yourself, inviting some people to join in with you, and then asking for the sale. Let's get started. Let's pass out the order forms. Let's go through it, make sure that we have questions answered. And then I think most of you guys are familiar with the ABC close, right? So you had a great time and just wanted to be a part of the community. You want to be healthier and really see what happens when you start flooding your body with the Juice Plus nutrition. You can help the family get started right away. And or perhaps after hearing all the stories, you can't help but think about other family members or friends that couldn't be here, and you can see yourself sharing this information, and we would love to partner with you. And we talked about like different ways to make that happen, and I honestly believe like if you have I'm excited to be working with people that are like local, that we're doing some of these events that we can work together because, it will allow us to kind of break apart and somebody can be working with someone while and actually putting orders in while we're doing whatever the next activity is, right? We're going to be working as a team to kind of pull everything together. So we're very excited to kind of be doing that as well. And then comes the fun part. And there's a lot of different ways. I think that this kind of goes back to that very first slide that I showed you that gave you some of the ideas, right? Get creative with this. There are all kinds of different types of workshops. You could do overnight oats, salad in a jar, sourdough. If you need to have any coaching done on sourdough, do not call me, call Lori. Right? She and Bill like do sourdough. Carol does a great job with sourdough. I am not a sourdough, but it sounded so cool because there's one picture in here that you guys will probably see where they like did not just sourdough bread, right? They did like sourdough pizza, right? And they all walked away with a little pizza. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would like that, right? If I didn't have to make the sourdough part, if I could just roll it out and make my pizza, I'd be happy. Um, I'm not sure what kombucha is. I'm not gonna lie to you, so don't call me about that one. But I'm sure there's lots of people that make that. I know Lori and Danette have done that for a long time too. And then I love just that going back to the basics, right, of potluck. And she called it good food, great company. And so there's all kinds of fun things that you can do. And when you tie people into that, we've done salad in a jar for years. And when you tie people into their invitation by asking them to bring an ingredient, that seems to kind of solidify the fact that they're going to be at the event. So here's kind of where the magic starts to happen because she put it all together. And this is what you'll see reflected in the worksheet is that you have all the different types of things that you might want to look at when you open the event, right? Do I want to have samples? Do I want to do an icebreaker? Or does the host want to share a story, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to look the same at every single event, but something needs to happen during the opening. And then the facts, right? I may do a watch party. I may have a speaker. We may be watching a video or a combination of the two. We may do slides. I'm going to tell you guys, I've done a couple of smaller kind of networking events where I did not have slides were not available. I created a presentation on on a board page, and I sent that to them, and we kind of walked through that. And both 3 times I think I've done that, and it's been very effective. And then the stories, right? The heart piece of this, who's going to be there to be able to share their stories? What might circle sharing look like? What are some of the questions that you might come up with for circle sharing? And again, like there's some super creative ways that you can get people to open up and start talking. Is there someone there that specifically that you want to celebrate, maybe their health journey, something that they've overcome? And then we've talked about the close, asking for the sale, and then what the fun part is, right? So I love how she has this kind of set up where the first 4 things are going to be happening during your event, and if you guys notice, like the close is actually happening before you even get to the meat of the like the workshop or the demo or the potluck or whatever it is, right? So you've covered everything that you want to make sure that you cover before you even get to the fun part. And so I thought that's, I think, where we fall apart sometimes. We think that we got to get all this other stuff done first, and then the close comes at the very end. And what happens if someone has to leave early, right? They've missed out on that part. So this is an example of actually kind of working through the worksheets, right? And so this is what their worksheet looked like, and there are some pictures down there at the bottom. And this was one of those corporate prospect calls, right? So they opened, they had some samples, they welcomed people, the host shared her story, they did the watch party, which included a speaker and the slides, right? Then they shared some stories. They went through the close and actually hit all of those areas, the special offers, what's next. They asked for the sale, and that was their event, right? It wasn't, they didn't have like an activity or a fun piece of that. This one was set up to be just like this, right? The second event was more of a coffee chat. And again, you can kind of see the pictures. It was a little bit more relaxed of an atmosphere. They had samples. They didn't really go through the facts piece of that because it looked like they were at a restaurant. They shared stories. They talked with each other. They celebrated. They went through the special offers and what's next. And my guess is that in a place like this, they didn't necessarily ask for the sale because everybody was bringing people with them. So that the asking piece was probably incumbent on the person that had invited whoever their buddy was that they had brought with them. Okay. The next piece they have, this was the pizza one. So they call this event Come to the Table. And it looks like they do a series of them. So you'll be able to see these a little bit better when you look at the PDF. But they always change up probably what the theme and what is that they're making when they come to the table. But again, they have samples, they do the welcome, they have some video or slides, they're sharing stories in the heart. They're going through all of those elements of the close, and then they're going to like the fun part, right? The workshop. In this particular case, like they're making something or they're all bringing or contributing to whatever the meal is when they come to the table. So this is what our team is trying to do. So if you have team in your local area, we can support each other, but at the same time, like if you're in the Georgia area, but you have customers here, like I want you to know that anybody's welcome, right? To come if they live in the Tomball Spring area, this is what we're going to be doing. But they mapped out everything, right? This was back in June, so they did the Heart of Texas boot camp was coming up. They did their weekly coffee chats. They do those on a weekly basis on Thursdays. They do monthly watch parties. They do a come to the table event, and all of that leads up to the big event that's in September. So that's kind of what their monthly rhythm is. And then they ended up with just a bunch of pictures of all the different events that they have. So hopefully that I got through all that very quickly, but you also have the blank worksheet that I have that's also in our boards. And I know that some of you, I did not know when I put this together that they would be, Lori and Jan are going to be on Terry's line tonight doing the same presentation. I mean, but their version of it, right? So if you guys want to feel like you want to hear all that again from the developer herself, then, you know, please, you're welcome to do that. But you have, at least you have some of the resources. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm really excited about the events.
That was great, Donna. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, really good. I think it's so
Awesome.
fun to have this format. I think it really does help.
Yeah, I'm
And I
just
love going to Chipotle, so
Say
Yeah.
again?
I love going to Chipotle.
Yeah.
So being able to, that's part of the fun of the event. It's, the food didn't
Yeah.
have to be all that great. It's just the fun of being able to make it yourself.
So,
So
all right.
awesome.
That's
Very
it.
good.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Donna.
Thank you,
Great
Donna.
job, Donna.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
Monday evening.
That was great, Donna.
Y'all have a
Thank
great
you.
week.